Hey, mathematicians, how are you? We are going to be talking about intercepts today and explaining to you what those are. So what are intercepts? Well, on a coordinate plane, we're going to talk about what they mean, but better yet, we're going to look at this interception that the Vikings made against the Packers, right? So they're intercepting the ball. They're crossing the path from the Packers quarterback to the Packers receiver, all right? So an intercept is where a point or a line crosses the path of another line. And in most specifically, we're talking about the y-intercept and the x-intercept, okay? It's where a line on a graph crosses the y-axis and crosses the x-axis, okay? And in any line, there will be at most one x-intercept and one y-intercept if you're talking about a straight line. So we're going to talk today and see some examples of what intercepts are, okay? It's where they cross another line. When I'm looking at this graph, I can see that this is my y-axis. The horizontal axis is my x-axis, okay? So when I'm looking for the y-intercept, the y-intercept is where this line crosses the y-axis, which is right there at 200. So my y-intercept is 200 because my graph crosses 200, okay? My x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. So my x-intercept is going to be 4. So we're looking to see where does the line cross the y-axis and the x-axis. Let's take a peek at this one. My y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. That's right here. That's 3. The x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis, which is right here, which is 15. Okay, what we're looking at is where do they cross the x and the y-axis. Now, when I look at these, one thing else I want you to really focus in on is when I'm looking at crossing the y-axis, what is the value of x? When I cross the y-axis, my x value is 0. So for the y-intercept, x is 0. For my x-intercept, when I cross the x-axis, my y is 0 because it's crossing right on the y-axis or right on the x-axis. That's where y equals 0. Let's see what happens on the other graph. All right. So when I'm looking at my other graph, where I cross the y-axis, that's where x is 0. So x equals 0. And on the x-intercept, it's where y equals 0. So we want to keep that in the back of our mind. When we're finding the x-intercept, it's when y is 0. When we're finding the y-intercept, that's when x is 0. Let's take a look at a couple more graphs, okay? Let's take a look here. My y-intercept is where my graph crosses the y-axis. At the y-intercept, my x is 0, which means that my y-intercept is going to be 250 because it's right between 200 and 300. It crosses the y-axis at 250. Now I want to see where it crosses the x-axis. It's going to cross the x-axis at 10. So my x-intercept is going to be 10, and that's when y equals 0. Y equals 0 when I'm finding my x-intercept. Take a look at this one. Here's my y-axis. It crosses the y-axis at -4. So my y-intercept is -4, and that's when x equals 0. My y-intercept is when x equals 0. My x-axis is right here. My x-intercept is 3. And that's when y equals 0. So that's what we're looking here, where y equals 0. Now, what if we have, I'm going to skip a line. Okay, for right now, I'm just going to skip and go to these graphs. Now, before I said keep in the back of your mind that when you're finding the x-intercept, your y is 0. And when you're finding the y-intercept, your x is 0. Okay, so when I'm looking at t-tables, the first thing I want to do is find the rows that have 0 in them. So I've got 0 right here, and I have 0 right here, because my intercepts have 0 as the other variable. So when I look at this, I see that y is 0. That tells me that the x-intercept is 2. The x-intercept is going to be 2. The y-intercept is going to be 9 because x is 0. So the y-intercept is going to be 9. The y-intercept is 9. Let's take a look at another t-table. Let's look at this one over here. I'm going to identify where the zeros are, because that's going to help me figure it out. Okay. When y is 0, x is 4. That means that the x-intercept is 4. When y is 0, x is 4. That's the x-intercept. For the other one, I see that x is 0, which means my y-intercept is -3. My y-intercept is -3. We've got 2 more, and then you're going to get some time to work on your Schoology assessment. So I'm looking where my zeros are. And so when x is 0, the other number is my y-intercept. So the y-intercept is -5. When I find y is 0, my x-intercept is 1.5. So your first step when looking at a table to see where is it going to cross the x and the y axis is to find your zeros. Because as we showed back here, when you're finding, there we go, when you're finding the intercepts, when you're finding the x-intercept, the y value is 0. Or when you're finding the y-intercept, the x value is 0. One more table, here we go. So I'm finding the zeros, number 1 job. When my y is 0, my x-intercept, is -3. When x is 0, my y-intercept is 2. All right. I hope that you have a great afternoon. Thanks for listening along. If you've got more questions, let me know. Take care.